Welcome back to Watch the Bookerman and to episode number 61 of Paul Heyman's TNA. This is the first episode of 2011 and we ended last year with the New Age standing tall, and we'll see how this new year begins with a special New Year's episode of Impact. As you can see, the card on screen there to mark the 1 year anniversary of Paul Heyman's arrival in TNA. We are in the Impact Zone as we always are for Impact. Let's get into the New Year's special. And we begin with the final of the World X Cup. This has been going on since just after Bound for Glory. Team USA versus Team Japan. And Team Japan dominate proceedings initially before Team USA start to mount a comeback. Generation Me are able to take down both Okada and Kiyoshi during this. And this leaves Roderick Strong with Yoshihashi. Sweeney then grabs the X Division Championship, which belongs to Okada from ringside, and looks to hand it to Yoshihashi. However, Austin Creed, a member of Larry Sweeney's Sweet and Sour stable, grabs it. Larry Sweeney tells him that this is his last chance. If he's taking the title, he needs to go and knock Roderick Strong out with it. Austin Creed refuses and, definitively drawing a line under his time with Sweeney's group, hits Larry Sweeney in the face with the championship. Strong is then able to hit a half Nelson backbreaker, it says, to Yoshihashi to win the World X Cup for Team USA in 10 minutes and 32. So a lot to unpack from that match. And also, I don't know why it's taken this long, but Okada is now officially a heel, and Austin Creed's heel turn that we've been also teasing very much nixed, and he has shown his loyalty to Team USA. After the match and the celebration, we go to a break, and when we're back, the commentators explain that Team Japan had carried Larry Sweeney out and made a hasty exit, taking their silver medals from ringside and storming off in a huff. In the ring, Sonjay Dutt says that he is missing a co-host with Larry Sweeney being down, so he invites Austin Creed to come to the ring and present the trophy to the winning team. Roderick Strong, Nick and Matt Jackson have all now regrouped in the ring, the winning Team USA taking their gold medals from Sonjay Dutt before shaking hands with Austin Creed. As Roderick Strong, the captain of Team USA, shapes up to lift the trophy, Generation Me ask if they can be the ones to get the first touch. Despite the fact that he's the captain, Strong is happy to take the back seat as Nick and Matt Jackson raised the World X Cup in the air. Strong stood between them. A big celebration follows, red, white and blue confetti coming from the ceiling, and we want to make this a big moment. That's the reason I gave it the opening spot on such a big show, because we want this to be a huge accomplishment for all three guys. Generation Me have had a bit of a mixed time since coming to TNA about a year ago. Roderick Strong has done a little bit better, but this can be a really good launch pad for their careers with such a significant victory. Switching focus from the World X Cup final, the commentators introduced footage of Lockdown 2010, where Kurt Angle became the World Heavyweight Champion by defeating AJ Styles. Following that main event, Bobby Lashley returned to TNA and took out AJ Styles, looking to send a message to the man who had just been crowned the champion. That led to a World Heavyweight Championship match between the two men that main evented Slammiversary. We'll see footage of that later tonight, ahead of Angle Lashley 2 in the main event of Impact. So last year's Slammiversary main event being given away on free TV. Hamada and Taylor Wilde, something of a makeshift team, actually pick up a clean victory over the well-established former Knockouts Tag Team Champions, the New Age, Alyssa Flash and Mischief. And usually a thrown together team shouldn't be an established team, but the idea here is that these two have such great natural chemistry and look already like they've been doing it for years. The commentators wondering, is this going to be a tag team we see for some time to come? Based on the evidence of tonight, it should be, as Taylor Wilde pins Mischief in 10 minutes and 4 seconds with a German suplex, all four with pretty decent ratings, just below the top level of knockouts that we have. Sarah Del Rey, Mickie James, Tara are that top tier at the minute. These are four women who I feel can reach that level with some strong booking. They stand tall after the match, and we're just putting across again that a makeshift team has defeated the established duo of Alyssa Flash and Mischief. Natural chemistry, could there be a permanent fixture? As they head up the ramp, the commentators also take this time to promote TNA Evolve, as one half of the Knockouts Tag Team Champions, Mickie James, is set to be in action on that debut episode. There'll be a lot more about that show later tonight, with a huge main event set to be announced for that debut on MTV. And we move then into an interview with Team USA. We've given them a little bit of time to get their thoughts together to recover from the match, but Jeremy Borash wants to speak to them about such a significant victory for Team USA. After Generation Me speak first and put over the huge achievement of the trio, Roderick Strong talks up Nick and Matt Jackson. He's been very selfless here, as he was in that previous segment, saying that they've worked so hard and they've fought for every opportunity they've got in the last 12 months of the company. When he was asked to captain Team USA, there was only 2 guys who he wanted on his team. He knows the struggles that they faced throughout 2010, adjusting to a new locker room, but he's sure that this is the first of many accomplishments for them in their TNA careers. Speaking of opportunities, Jeremy Borash reveals to Roderick Strong that he will get one of his own this Saturday on TNA Evolved. One last opportunity at Kazuchika Okada's X Division Championship. Roderick Strong is surprised by this news and says that as good as this week has been, he's ready to top it off this Saturday night live on MTV. Jeremy Borash also reveals that that match will open the show, so it will be the first ever match of TNA Evolved, and that in itself is another nice little notch on Roderick Strong's belt. Before the World Tag Team Championship #1 contendership match up next, a video package is introduced looking at the impact of the New Age since their arrival in October 2010. Nobody's been able to stop the male side of the trio specifically since Chris Hero, Claudio Castagnoli and Tyler Black debuted as part of Project 10-10-10. AJ Styles, Jeff Hardy and Sting have been the most high profile victims of the trio, but it's not been limited to them. Hero and Castagnoli face wrestling's greatest tag team up next, so just a quick video package recapping, because we want this to be a show that maybe draws some new eyes or other eyes that haven't been on the product over the last few months, and we just want a quick recap of who the New Age are and what they've been able to achieve in such a short space of time. And there's another achievement here as they become the #1 contenders. They defeat wrestling's greatest tag team in 17 minutes and 6 seconds when Chris Hero pins Charlie Haas with a hangman's elbow. During the match, we also had Tyler Black at ringside. He was trying to get involved until Samoa Joe came down the ramp behind him. Black had no idea and he was choked out, so he could no longer have any influence on the match himself, but in the distraction, Jimmy Jacobs is able to throw the loaded elbow into Chris Hero. The hangman's elbow is a loaded hangman's elbow, so a bit of a tainted finish and keeping Haas and Benjamin strong in that case, but it's a really good match to end the first hour. Shelton Benjamin, as always, is fantastic, but Chris Hero with a 79 is really encouraging. Remember, he's only been here a couple of months, so the sky really is the limit for Chris Hero. He's actually the best of the 3 performers out of the New Age so far, but for now, the Kings of Wrestling will face Motor City Machine Guns at Genesis at the end of the month. With Alex Shelley's injury, I've just kept the Motor City Machine Guns off screen tonight. I thought about maybe having a face-off afterwards, but I just thought we could end the hour with the Kings of Wrestling taking in their victory and the commentators putting over yet another huge win for them. Returning to the second hour of Impact, Kurt Angle is interviewed by Jeremy Borash, and he talks about the attack from last week, which temporarily cast doubt over tonight's main event going ahead. Kurt Angle says that he has a pretty good idea who was behind the attack on him and who was actually involved, but he's not given that any of his attention tonight. His focus is, and has been all week, 100% on Bobby Lashley in tonight's main event. He'll address anything else next week. Angle then continues to promote the challenge of Bobby Lashley, saying that he knows that he's going to get hit hard tonight, but he has to make sure that he hits harder and leaves with the World Heavyweight Championship. So a basic, straightforward promo from Kurt Angle. Forget about anything else that's happening, because tonight's main event is what matters, and an 85 is a really good interview from him. Normally interviews don't do that well, so very nice to see. Jay Lethal then faces Matt Morgan in the blow-off to their big rivalry, and it's only a decent match, but the story of the match is the important thing. Matt Morgan initially in control, but Jay Lethal does pick up the victory, taking Matt Morgan off his feet before hitting a flying elbow, and obviously the emotion of this, the release of the victory for Jay Lethal is what's most important. He has been vindicated in everything he said. Matt Morgan claiming that he's too small and that he'd never be able to compete on his level, while a clean victory says otherwise. He is joined by his girlfriend Maria Kanellis, and after the months of hell that this pair have been through, there is a huge sense of relief as they embrace in the ring. Jay Lethal then asks for a microphone from ringside, with the ring announcer also handing him something else. with no chance of Matt Morgan cutting him off this time, Jay Lethal gets on one knee and proposes to Maria for the second time. This time, there is no interruption and Maria can accept the proposal, the couple emotional as they leave the ring together, a happy ending for Jay Lethal, but of course he has to continue to focus on the momentum of his in-ring career here in TNA. Cutting to the back, Christopher Daniels is shown approaching Bryan Danielson, who is speaking with the hooligans in the locker room. Daniels invites Bryan to join him in the ring tonight. He's got his big announcement or final address as it's kind of been billed as, and as the last person who faced him inside a TNA ring, he's got something he wants to say to him. Bryan Danielson doesn't really understand the request. Why would Daniels want the person who beat him last to be in the ring? Why can't he just speak to him now? Brian Kendrick and Paul London are equally suspicious. They think that something might be going on here, so they say that if Danielson comes to the ring, how about they join him? All three of them can hear what Daniels has to say. Daniels tells them to forget about it and leaves the room. Once Daniels is outside of the locker room, he takes his phone and makes a call speaking to AJ, asking if he got the invitation. From how Daniels reacts, it's clear that he's getting a tirade of abuse from the other end of the phone. Of course, him and AJ's best friend relationship very much disintegrating over the last sort of 16 months. Christopher Daniels looks pretty downbeat, says, "I'll take that as a no then," as he walks off alone. So almost building a little bit of sympathy for Christopher Daniels, although if you've seen how he's acted over the last year and a bit, really he doesn't deserve any. We then get the fifth match of the night and Sara Del Rey retains her Knockouts Championship against Sarita, 9 minutes and 34 by pinfall with a double underhook suplex. A valiant effort, Sarita using some of her high-flying moves, while Sara Del Rey is very much a ground offense-based competitor, and that wins out in the end with the Royal Butterfly. That's not to say there's not near falls, and there is moments when it looks like Sarita could take the title, but ultimately Sara Del Rey is just too much for a 62 rating from the champion. Sarita with a 57, and it's a good 62 rated match. Following another successful title defense, Sara Del Rey stands tall in the ring, raising the Knockouts Championship in the air. SDR has once again proved her pre-match words. She is without question now the top knockout in TNA Wrestling, if there was any doubt before then. One woman who may also have a claim to that title, however, she makes her way out from the back as Mickie James comes to the stage, but goes no further. She's got the Knockouts Tag Team Championship that she currently holds and raises it in the air. Del Rey is surprised to see Mickie, as are the commentators. Sara Del Rey raises her championship in response to this, obviously feeling that the Knockouts Championship is worth more than the Knockouts Tag Team Championship, and the commentators promote Mickie James's appearance this Saturday on TNA Evolve. After this weekend, however, as Tara continues to recover at home from her injuries, it appears that Mickie James may well have set her sights on the other Knockouts Championship and potentially having a match with Sara Del Rey. That is all speculation at this point, but clearly Mickie James wanted to get her attention. Heading away from ringside, James Mitchell is shown in the usual dark, creepy setting that him and Abyss are found. Abyss is pacing behind him, and James Mitchell explains last week's unlikely alliance with the New Age. He says that the group emerged as the most dominant force in TNA, but only in the absence of his monster. With Abyss returning, last week's amnesty was part of an agreement between Mitchell and Jimmy Jacobs. They will stay out of the business of the New Age, and he'll ensure that Abyss doesn't end their revolution before it gets going. However, Abyss has his sights set on one thing, the World Heavyweight Championship, and whoever gets between himself and that title, even if it's Jimmy Jacobs and the New Age, they will be taken out. This guy is clearly as unhinged as ever and fully under the control of James Mitchell. We then get the entrance of Christopher Daniels, who is looking pretty downbeat and somber. He's got a suit on, a very formal attire, and he's got a folder with a piece of paper in it. Clearly this is something very important to him, and that's what the commentators and Daniels' actions try to put over, that this is a very, very big night. Once in the ring, he says that he wanted to make tonight special because it's such a significant night for him and his TNA career, but he sees now through making calls and trying to get into contact with people that he's made a lot of enemies recently. Brian didn't want to know. His best friend of a decade didn't want to know either. Even Elix and Key wouldn't return his calls. So now, it's just him. But he feels that's very fitting for what he's about to say, because with every rejection, he became stronger in his convictions of what he had to do tonight. From the moment he began to question his place in the future of TNA, his true friends revealed themselves. As he says that, Frankie Kazarian walks down from the back, the two embrace, and Kazarian himself then takes a microphone. He says that he's not here alone tonight, Daniels has more friends than he thinks, and welcomes back Beer Money. Making their first appearance since Turning Point a couple of months back, James Storm and Robert Roode also hug Christopher Daniels and play up the emotions of this moment, while a lot of his other friends and previous associates weren't here tonight. Those guys are here to support him for what Daniels is about to say. Christopher Daniels takes the microphone back from Kazarian, and he says ever since he came to the ring, he's been looking at this piece of paper, because this piece of paper is the final key to his future. And tonight isn't a goodbye. Tonight is a hello. He tells the Impact Zone to say hello to the four fathers of TNA Wrestling. He's going nowhere. He takes a pen from his pocket and signs his TNA contract. He's staying on, and more importantly, he's not alone. He's got Frankie Kazarian, James Storm, and Robert Roode, and the forefathers are here in TNA. So a decent segment setting up the new stable that we've been promoting through those vignettes in the last couple of weeks, and they see a better future for all four of them together. Clearly, we'll see how that develops. The commentators reacting to that and saying that it is clearly a time of change in TNA, and there's no bigger change than the debut of the TNA Evolve show on Saturday night. Kazuchika Okada's X Division Championship defense against Roderick Strong. Strong's final opportunity at getting that title, and an appearance from Mickie James already confirmed. Mauro Ranallo then announces a huge main event for the show as AJ Styles makes his way to the TNA ring. He may not have been there for Christopher Daniels tonight, but he will be there on Saturday in a main event featuring Bryan Danielson, Samoa Joe, and Tyler Black. A star-studded main event, as Taz adds that the winner of that match will face the winner of tonight's main event, with the World Heavyweight Championship on the line at Genesis 2011. So this big week for TNA, clearly having huge implications for the future, and we go then into a video package looking at their previous encounter at Slammiversary 8. As we said earlier, Kurt Angle narrowly won the match and retained his World Heavyweight Championship. At the end of Final Resolution, Bobby Lashley returned to TNA just a few weeks ago, setting his sights on the title once more. 1 year on from the beginning of the Paul Heyman era, where Bobby Lashley sensationally claimed that he was going to quit on that first episode of 2010. The dual sport star obviously went on to re-sign and got his restructured deal, and he'll get the opportunity to challenge for the World Heavyweight Championship up next. And it's a 76 rated main event, which is decent. And the idea here is that Kurt Angle is very much struggling with his leg, the injury from last week, the attack that took place. And Bobby Lashley's in control. We haven't seen this during Kurt Angle's reign, really. Somebody who simply looks to be faster, stronger, more agile, and better than him. And Bobby Lashley sets up for the spear that will end the match. However, as Kurt Angle staggers back to his feet, the Kings of Wrestling appear and pull him out of the ring. Simultaneously, or just a couple of seconds later, Tyler Black pulls the leg of Lashley and takes him down. The referee is looking between the two situations, and he's got no choice. He has to call for the bell. It's a sports entertainment finish and a screwy end to the show, but Bobby Lashley seemingly closing in on becoming the World Heavyweight Champion, so perhaps Mr. Anderson's been right all along about Kurt Angle being on a little bit of a decline. But the post-match sees even more chaos than we saw in the match. The New Age achieving what they set out to initially do in ensure that we didn't get a finish to the main event, but they're not done sending a message at the conclusion of New Year's Impact. Kurt Angle, as I said, was dragged out of the ring, but gets thrown into the guardrail by Chris Hero and Claudio Castagnoli. He's already taken a hell of a beating from Bobby Lashley, so he just slumps on the ground. It appears then that the main target of the New Age's attack is in fact Bobby Lashley, which is a little bit surprising. Tyler Black and the Kings of Wrestling lay into Lashley, who is initially able to fight back, but is eventually overwhelmed by the numbers. Once he's down and out, the Kings hold him up against the ring post as Black dislodges the steel steps. With Lashley in position, they've kind of wrapped his arm around the ring post. Tyler Black runs towards him, driving these steel steps into his arm. Bobby Lashley drops to the ground immediately, yelling out in pain. He is clearly severely hurt. This isn't just your random post-match attack. This is a targeted, specific assault, and it looks like he may well have broken his arm, as they did last week. The New Age stand tall, leaving no doubt this is back-to-back weeks now where they have stood in the ring, the most dominant force in TNA. Black has the chance to join the Kings of Wrestling as the other number one contender in the company. Of course, the Kings of Wrestling will get the World Tag Team Championship match at Genesis 2011. But in the main event of Saturday's TNA Evolve debut on MTV, Tyler Black, along with AJ Styles, Bryan Danielson and Samoa Joe, will get an opportunity to become the World Heavyweight Championship number one contender. And with Bobby Lashley seemingly out of the frame, Kurt Angle clearly has something to worry about if Tyler Black can win that match. It's a really good show overall, a 78, happy with that. Maybe if we would have had one major segment in there that tipped it over the edge, we could have got one of our best impacts ever, but I'm certainly happy with that. As we come to the end of the first episode of 2011, I've still got a lot of work to do with Ring of Honor, but I do remember somebody asking about seeing the new workers throughout 2010 who I may or may not have missed. So Scarlett has joined the wrestling business in January 2011, somebody to keep an eye on for the future. There's not actually that many new people come through. Trinidad, of course, appeared in TNA as Rosita, and I think I've actually already used her as a local, so we used her once, I think, against Tara, so she's definitely on the shortlist. Alison Kay, another TNA alumni, as is Jessie Goddard. Quite a few actually here. Caitlyn from WWE. Roman Reigns has joined the business. Quite a few big names debuting there, and we'll see how they develop throughout the years. I don't think any of them have been signed yet, as far as I'm aware, they're all still currently unemployed, but definitely something to follow. Again, I'm on an early version of the mod, so I've not got all of the future wrestlers, which is a bit of a shame. I'm sure I'll be able to import people in and sort that out anyway, but you can see tomorrow night, TNA Evolve is scheduled. And here we are on Saturday night. Just a few details to get out of the way before we go into the show. Evolve won't be broadcast from the Impact Zone. Instead, we are in the Hammerstein Ballroom for the first recording of the show. A place with a lot of history for Paul Heyman and for Ring of Honor, who we recently bought out. We're looking to fill that gap in the tri-state area. Also, we will be recording 2 one-hour shows per taping. The first one airing live, the one that I'll be running through shortly, and the second being broadcast the following week. Of course, we need to hit this MTV debut right out of the park, and I'm confident that this show can make that good first impression on the new network and hopefully with any new fans. And we are straight into the first match as we open the show. Commentators Ada Okal, Mauro Ranallo and Jeremy Borash welcoming viewers to this historic night, but it's all about the entrance of the champion and the challenger, a huge X Division Championship match. We wanted a big moment to kick things off, and Roderick Strong winning the X Division Championship in a strong match which, as that note says there, got the show off to a strong start. Larry Sweeney at ringside, but couldn't affect the outcome. Finally, Roderick Strong picks up a victory over Kazuchika Okada and wins the title. No outside involvement, just a completely clean win for Roderick Strong. After the match, he celebrates the end of a great week for him. Thursday night saw him kick off New Year's Impact and win the World X Cup as captain of Team USA. And he opens the first episode of TNA Evolve 2 and becomes the X Division champion. We then switch focus to the next match on the night, and an introductory video package gives a first look at Daisy Hayes, who have signed to a short-term contract, and she is tonight's opponent for Mickie James. After words from Hayes herself and her trainer Kid Cash, we go into the second match of the night. Her gimmick debuting with a great rating and a really good match, to be fair. Mickie James, of course, carrying it with a 67, but Daisy Hayes' 39 is decent, an okay start, something to build on, and Hayes does give a good showing of herself, but Mickie James picks up that victory. Happy with the 60 rating, and following the match there is a clear sign of respect from Mickie James towards Daisy Hayes, but the established competitor was always going to win really. We then get a segment from Paul Heyman, which is another good rating. The commentary letting us down, that's probably something I'm going to think about. I may have a look on the worker screen whether there's some better people to bring in, but I can't think of anybody off the top of my head. And before we go into the main event, I just wanted a Paul Heyman promo where he puts over what TNA Evolve is all about, how it's about a different style, the next step of professional wrestling. He says that while viewers may not already know every face they see, they'll remember the names. It's all about the in-ring action. I'm going to keep the storyline stuff or the backstage segment-y type stuff certainly to a minimum on this show. Speaking of faces the fans may not have seen, while the commentators hype the final match of the night, a disturbance is heard up in the balcony of the Hammerstein Ballroom. Recently fired from Ring of Honor at Final Battle, Kevin Steen takes a seat in the balcony. He's not here to do anything or say anything. He is just here to watch the main event of the first episode of TNA Evolved. So his new gimmick gets a great rating, so that's good to see. And hopefully a little bit of intrigue on this first show ahead of that really good main event. Happy with that. And it is Tyler Black who wins, defeating Bryan Danielson, AJ Styles, both of whom aren't involved in the finish, while Samoa Joe is the one who is taken out by Tyler Black with the stomp. And the idea here is that on Thursday night, Tyler Black was taken out from behind by Samoa Joe, but he is able to steal the victory really here tonight and scurries off up the ramp afterwards. Decent performances from everybody, but Samoa Joe particularly stands out, which may make it seem a little bit unfair that he's the one to take the fall, but we get the crowd buzzing and the show ends Tyler Black standing tall at the top of the ramp as the number one contender, while Kevin Steen watches on. A 76 is a good rating overall. I have that second week of Evolve to go through now, which won't be in this episode, so this is where we leave it. Thank you very much for watching the first week of 2011 here in TNA, and hopefully that has kicked off the year much in the same way that we ended 2010, and we've got to keep that momentum going as we move now towards Genesis 2011. Kurt Angle versus Tyler Black confirmed. Much more to come in the fallout from TNA Impact and from TNA Evolve.